Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 2. In my last video I was talking about this Bible code, which is about the two witnesses, and explaining how the two names that come up in this code are the names Enoch and Elias, and the way they come up seems to form a picture of a triangle or a pyramid or some type of mountain. Now, one of the things that I forgot to mention in my last video is that right over here it has the term the Holy City, and this crosses with the name Elias, as you can see right here. Now, the Holy City is actually synonymous with the temple, which, as you recall, it has the term the temple up here at the top of the triangle. Now, I wanted to show you a couple of scriptures that come up about the Holy City. As you can see, one is in Revelation 11, which is where the Bible code is, and the other one is in Revelation 21. And if you go to Revelation 11, you will see that John is given a reed to measure the temple of God. Then when you go to Revelation 21, you see that it also talks about the measurements of the temple, and it actually gives some measurements in Revelation 21. As you can see, starting from verse 15, it reads as follows: "And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. And he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel." Now, I don't know enough about geometry to be able to tell you what type of shape these measurements make, but from what I understand, they could make the shape of a square or a pyramid. So it's really hard to say for certain what type of shape the temple of God is going to be, but nevertheless it is going to be a spiritual temple, so whatever shape it takes is going to be more metaphorical rather than literal. However, if you will notice, the scriptures describe Jesus when he comes back as a stone, which the builders rejected, that he is going to be the head of the corner. And if you look at the concordance for that, you will see that head of the corner actually means the head, which represents the top piece of the building, and it also speaks of the corner. And as you can see, the word here for corner actually means an external angle. So for the temple, for the top piece of God's temple to have a corner, it stands to reason that it may actually be shaped as a triangle or a pyramid. But something very interesting happens once the headstone is placed on the temple, and I just want to take you back to Zechariah 4 so you can see what happens once the headstone is placed on the temple. Okay, over here it reads, "Then he answered and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Who art thou, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel thou shalt become a plain. And he shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, crying, Grace, grace unto it." So as you can see, once the headstone is placed on the temple, which is being represented by a mountain here in the scriptures, it actually becomes a plain. I thought that was interesting, and I also thought it was interesting how this reads in the Greek. If you look over here, it actually has the words right here. It has the word lithon, which means stone, and he shall bring the headstone. And in the Greek, it reads tis kleronomias, which means of inheritance. And I'm going to show you how to translate this word so that you don't have to take my word for it. You can just copy and paste it, and then you can put it into this website right here, which is called Kata Biblon, and you can just plug it in there. Oops, I guess it didn't copy paste. Let me try that again. As you can see, that word means inheritance, and if you put in the next word, which is isotita, that means equality. Okay, so as you can see, the picture that I'm getting here is that God is really not interested in schemes the way this world seems to be. He's more interested in laying the playing field, making it a plain, and giving us an inheritance of equality. And then these next two words are grace, grace. So as you can see, it reads a little bit differently in the Greek, and I just thought that was very interesting. Now, if you remember back in Revelation 21:17, it had a measurement of 144 cubits. Now, the number 144 is very interesting, and it comes up in some other places in Scripture. And I want to show you another location right here where it has the number 144, and that is in Revelation 14, verse 1. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. So again, we're talking about a mountain, and we're seeing the number here of 144,000. Now, it's interesting that this is in Revelation 14, and it's talking about the number 144, because if you go to Zechariah 14, it also speaks of the number it doesn't speak of the number 144, but in verse 14:4, which looks like the number 144, it reads as follows: And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. Then if you skip down to verse 10, it also speaks about the land being turned into a plain. So I'll just read this scripture. It says, all the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up, and inhabited in her place from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate unto the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananiel unto the king's winepress. So again, we have a mountain, and then we see that once the Lord steps foot on this mountain becomes a plain. So as you can see, there seems to be a parallel between Zechariah 14 and Zechariah 4, and since they're both written by Zechariah, it would stand to reason that Zechariah is probably speaking of the same thing in Zechariah 14 as he was speaking about in Zechariah 4. Okay, this brings me to this video right here. I'm not sure if you all have seen this video or not, but if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you watch this video. And I do believe that this young man's testimony is true about his near-death experience. And one of the reasons why I believe it's true is because probably a couple of months before he made this testimony, I was actually just beginning to understand some of these things in Scripture that I really don't think a lot of people know about. And then just 2 months later, he actually made this testimony, which seems to match exactly with the things that I was discovering in the Scriptures that no one else seemed to know about, because I've never heard these things taught before, and yet they were confirmed by his testimony. So I do believe that his testimony is true, and I actually wanted to make a more complete video describing exactly the things that I was discovering in the Scriptures, particularly about Zechariah 14, and beginning to understand and how they were confirmed by this young man in his testimony. So that's the main reason why I believe that his testimony must be true. And according to his testimony, the redemption was going to arrive, which of course is the Messiah, which is Jesus. Of course, Jesus was not revealed to him in his near-death experience. Only information about the Messiah was revealed to him, which matched everything that we know about Jesus, but the actual name of the Messiah was not revealed to him. But everything that was in his testimony seemed to match exactly what I was discovering in the Scriptures, which are things that I've never heard anyone else talk about before, and yet they were confirmed with this teenage boy over here who actually happened to be an atheist and didn't know anything about the Torah or anything that's written in the Bible. So there was no way he could have had this knowledge unless it was given to him supernaturally. And I don't think even the rabbi knew all these details about Zechariah that this young man brought forth in his testimony. So I just wanted to point that out, and I just want to continue to point out some of the things that are depicted in this table and how they match up with Natan. This teenage boy's name is Natan, and how they match up with his testimony and why I believe his testimony must be true. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that if his testimony is true, he had stated that the redemption would arrive in just a matter of months, and this was back in September, October. So if that's true, that means that we are on the threshold of these things being fulfilled, and there's actually not much time left, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to try to get these videos out and do as many as I can with the little time that we have until the time comes when the Lord arrives. And as you can, well, you can't see it, but I'm actually running out